There's a 227-year-old argument for solving overpopulation by killing half the planet. Thanos used it. So did real governments. It's failed every single time, no exceptions. In 1798, an English economist named Thomas Malthus published an essay that would haunt the next 2 centuries. His argument was simple: population grows faster than food supply ever can. Left unchecked, more people will always outrun the ability to feed them. Malthus believed something would always intervene to correct the balance: disease, famine, war, and that trying to prevent those correctives only delayed a worse collapse later. The logic is clean. The conclusion is brutal. Suffering isn't a failure of the system, it's the system working as intended. Malthus wasn't writing in a vacuum. He was directly responding to utopian thinkers of his era, like William Godwin, who believed humanity was capable of building a world of permanent abundance and equality. Malthus thought that was dangerously naive, and he wrote his essay specifically to prove it wrong with math instead of sentiment. In that sense, the argument was never really about population by itself. It was a rebuttal to hope. On paper, the argument has real appeal, and it's worth understanding why serious people believed it. First, the math looks undeniable. A planet has finite land, finite water, finite calories, and a growing population must eventually hit that ceiling. Second, it offers a clean, universal fix: reduce demand instead of betting civilization on inventions that haven't been discovered yet. Third, purely random reduction can look almost fair on its face. Nobody is chosen, nobody is blamed. The math simply resets. And fourth, the fear underneath it is real. Resource strain, climate pressure, and ecological collapse are genuine, documented problems, not imagined ones. The theory isn't attractive because it's cruel. It's attractive because the anxiety underneath it is legitimate. But theories don't stay theoretical for long. Malthus's ideas fed directly into the eugenics movements of the early 20th century. In the United States alone, an estimated 60 to 70,000 people were forcibly sterilized under these programs, a practice the Supreme Court itself upheld in 1927, ruling that a state's interest in preventing unfit reproduction outweighed an individual's right to have children. Nazi Germany's own lawyers later cited that American ruling at the Nuremberg trials to help justify sterilizing hundreds of thousands more, and the reach went well beyond Germany and the United States. Sweden ran its own forced sterilization program well into the 1970s. Decades later, China's one-child policy, informed by the same population panic thinking Ehrlich had popularized, led to millions of additional forced sterilizations and abortions, some of the largest state population control efforts in human history. Different countries, different decades, different governments. Same underlying math every time. The logic that sounded clean on paper became a tool for real targeted harm the moment it met real policy. The idea resurfaced in 1968 when biologist Paul Ehrlich published The Population Bomb, predicting that hundreds of millions of people would starve to death within a decade as population outstripped food production. It became a bestseller. Governments took it seriously. It was almost entirely wrong. Here's the flaw nobody in either century accounted for. Malthus and Ehrlich both assumed food production was fixed, while population wasn't. It never was. Around the same time Ehrlich was predicting mass starvation, agronomist Norman Borlaug's Green Revolution was already rewriting the equation. New crop varieties, fertilizers, and irrigation techniques that multiplied food yields several times over. Borlaug's work is credited with saving roughly 1 billion lives from starvation, and he won the Nobel Peace Prize for it in 1970. 2 years after Ehrlich's book predicted the exact famines Borlaug's wheat was already busy preventing. Today, with several times the global population Malthus ever imagined, the world produces more food than it needs. The hunger that still exists isn't caused by scarcity. It's caused by distribution, conflict, and waste. In 1980, economist Julian Simon challenged Ehrlich directly. Pick any 5 natural resources, and if population growth was really driving the world toward scarcity, their prices should rise over the next decade. Ehrlich chose chromium, copper, nickel, tin, and tungsten, putting $200 on each, $1,000 total, certain that scarcity would drive every one of them higher. Over that same decade, the global population grew by more than 800 million people, the single largest population increase in human history to that point. If Ehrlich's theory meant anything at all, this was exactly the decade it should have proven it. 10 years later, every single metal was cheaper, not more expensive. The total value of Ehrlich's basket had fallen so far that he mailed Julian Simon a check for $576, paying up on a bet he never actually stopped disagreeing with. Economist Esther Boserup offered the explanation Malthus missed entirely. Population pressure doesn't just consume resources, it motivates people to solve problems. More people has historically meant more farmers experimenting with better techniques, more engineers, more scientists, more of exactly the kind of thinking that gets a species out of a resource trap in the first place. Look at almost any major leap in agricultural or medical history. Crowded, resource-strained places are disproportionately where breakthroughs happen, not sparse, comfortable ones. Cutting the population in half doesn't just remove the strain, it removes the people who might have solved it. And underneath the math, there's a problem the theory can never resolve. Even a perfectly random cull doesn't ask permission. Every historical attempt to act on this logic, forced sterilization, coercive population control, wartime population management, has required deciding on someone else's behalf that their life was the acceptable cost of someone else's math. And history shows exactly who tends to get chosen when the deciding isn't actually random in practice. The poor, the disabled, minorities, colonized populations. Malthus's original theory imagines suffering falling evenly across humanity by mathematical necessity. In practice, every time this logic got turned into policy, it fell hardest on the people with the least power to refuse it. That decision has never once been made by the people paying for it. There's a final twist to this that neither Malthus nor Ehrlich saw coming. The exact fear their whole argument was built on has now essentially reversed. Global fertility rates have collapsed far faster than almost anyone predicted. Most of the world now sits below the replacement rate needed just to keep a population stable, and countries like South Korea have fallen to the lowest birth rate ever recorded anywhere. Governments that once worried about overpopulation are now paying people to have more children, not fewer. The population bomb didn't go off. In much of the world, it's quietly starting to run in reverse. The idea makes for a good villain because it promises a clean fix to a problem that has never once had a clean fix. 227 years of evidence say the same thing every time. The answer to scarcity has never been fewer people. It's been better ideas. And every person removed from the equation is one less person who might have had one. Real problem solving has always been slower than a snap, messier than a clean cull, and far less satisfying to imagine. This has been Unbound Frontier.